What's up, friends? Thought of the day number 7 here on the YouTubes, talking about zone 2 or just low intensity training in general, moderate intensity domain, if we want to speak in that language, and its usefulness or appropriateness for a sprinter. I had a question again in French, which I decided to answer in English as well because content is content. So, is it interesting for a sprinter to include any low intensity training in their training week? So the short answer is yes. The second answer is, or the longer answer is, it depends. It depends on many things, and then it also depends how you're going to include it and why you're including it in your week. Um, I'm sorry, this is not going to be in English, but an interview through my podcast with Kenny Gex, I guess you would spell it out in English. He's the head coach of the short sprints for the Swiss national team, and he's actually started using low intensity training for his sprinters the days either before or after in small amounts, 20 to 30 minutes below threshold 1. Um, Either the day before or the day after some really high intensity sprints, and he uses it as a if we I don't want to try to use complicated terms, but trying to modulate autonomic tone, I guess. So trying to bring that parasympathetic dominance or try to rebalance the autonomic nervous system, if that's the right term. I don't like the term balance, but yeah, maybe pull back towards the parasympathetic a bit more, given the sympathetic nature of the sprints. So having a bit more parasympathetic the day before seems to put them in a good state to then perform at the highest level. It kind of mirrors what I remember reading in Charlie Francis's work. And on a different level, he used his physios. He had a physio and I think a few different ones throughout his career that he used with the sprinters. And because controlling the muscle tone of his sprinters was extremely important to ensure that they were able to produce the maximal amount of power throughout their high intensity efforts. And I think there's different ways you can get to that, and obviously manual therapy is one. But if you don't have access to that, or not in smaller amounts, or you don't have as much freedom, leeway to use those methods, then maybe adding some low intensity on a bike that's completely general relative to the specific nature of the sprint will not have any negative impact on the training at all. I would probably even say that for some sprinters, maybe that lack work capacity, maybe adding a little bit more than that, as in adding a bit of low intensity training on a bike, again, non-specific work, general work, if they lack general work capacity, I can only see that having a positive impact on their workload tolerance and intensity tolerance in the medium to long run, right? It always takes, no pun intended, it always takes 8 to 12 weeks for those adaptations, those low intensity training adaptations to manifest themselves once somebody starts using them. At first, well, it just takes a while, right? Because they're structural adaptations. We want more mitochondria, more capillaries, better fat oxidation capabilities. That doesn't change overnight. That doesn't change over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It takes 8 to 12 weeks to really manifest itself. And I think that certain sprinters can most likely benefit from it. Should every sprinter do it? No. Should every sprinter have a little bit of it at some point in their training year? Probably, and you'll probably see that anyway in the preseason or in the transition phase post competition. You might see some sprinters do that. So again, it's extremely individual, but I don't think we should dismiss the low intensity training for sprinters just because it's not specific. And I've gone over that in a couple recent videos in English too. I think the general nature of low intensity cycling, for example, has an inherent transfer to any specific sport activity, which is what's wonderful about general physical preparation. Then it does have a transfer to the specific stuff. It doesn't need to always be everything specific. We live in a world of ultra specific training. Everything has to transfer, everything has to look like the sport. And in the end, we're missing a huge part of that general development. I'm not going to go on that rant again, but again, I think sprinters can benefit from it as well. I'd be happy to hear your take on the question. Do you think sprinters should or can do low intensity training in their week, and if so, in what manner? How should they include it? Leave me a like if you enjoyed the content in English. I recently translated the course that I had created in French originally on thresholds, on understanding thresholds and training zones. So if you want to check that out, go to upsidestrengthacademy.com, and the course is in English there. The checkout might be in French still because the platform is in French, so sorry about that. But the course is definitely all in English. I just re-recorded all four, I think it's about 4 hours of content, 3.5, 4 hours of content on the topics of intensity domains, thresholds, and training zones and what they mean. So here you go. Links are in the description. And if you have any questions or you want any other topics tackled down the line in those thoughts of the day, leave me a comment below. All right, talk to you soon.